right, I think I'm recording correctly. Let me know if I'm not. I have one plug here for you. So if you sit close, like around here, then you can plug. All right, so welcome to our new classroom. I know this classroom kind of stinks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something special for you when it comes to the midterm. So for the midterm, I'm going to change it so that you could do it either here or from home, because it's all through Blackboard, right? So what's going to happen is it's password protected. At a certain time, I'm going to email an announcement saying, here's the password to get into your midterm, go. And then you'll have a couple of hours to do it from wherever you want. So the benefit is from home, at least you have, a power plug to plug into and not fear that your laptop will die. And the benefit, however, for coming here is if you have any questions, you can ask me. Whereas if you're at home and you try to email me, there's no guarantee I'll see my email kind of thing.
After class, you ask 40 questions and what would you like your multi-choice?
Oh yeah, I'll talk about that in a second, yes. Yeah, so you can take your midterm anywhere you want to, from home or here. Again, if it's from here, you can ask me questions. If it's from home, you can't ask me questions. Or you can try to ask me questions through email, but there's no guarantee I'll see it. What else I want to say? Try not to cheat, and I'll make the Blackboard midterm very hard for you to cheat, even if you try. Okay, so what else I want to say? Assignment number 2 is due this Monday, June 17 at midnight. Second announcement. Third announcement I want to say, remember how last class I said functions are also objects? I wanted to, let's go over that really quick, because I didn't actually show you the object part fully. So if I say, like, if I declare my function right now, and I console log, hey. So if I want to see the function definition, I just say my func. There it is. If I want to run that function, how do I run that function, John? And what's after the my func? Parentheses. Good. Okay, so here's the part where functions are also objects. You could just say my func got whatever equals whatever. And now it's both a function and an object, really. So if I get the little arrow thing, like if I say, now unfortunately if I say my func, it'll just give me the definition. I won't get that arrow thing. But if I say console.dir my func, then I'll get the arrow thing. Then you can see there's my whatever. So functions are also objects. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Not that you'll need that for this midterm. Okay, I want to make sure that you understood this week's after class exercise. So previously you've done stuff on Free Code Camp. This week it's going to be a little different. It's not Free Code Camp at all. So I'm going to ask you to create basically one multiple choice question for the midterm that I may include on the midterm. Okay? But you're going to do it in a special way. So let me introduce that special way by looking at maybe Bootstrap's GitHub repository. Most times when you look at any GitHub repository, they have this nice readme.md file. This MD stands for what? Anyone know? Stands for Markdown. And you see here, this is their documentation. Looks okay, looks pretty, whatever. The question I have for you is, how did they create this? Here's the answer. Go to, where's the README here? Actually, Markdown. Here's their answer. What is Markdown? So in order for you to write a heading, for example, like this, I would actually have to type this. where you have a hashtag. And let me show you more clearly in VS Code, because VS Code has a nice GitHub Markdown preview. So this is what you're going to do for your after class exercise. You're going to, oh shoot, yeah. So let's just create a new file somewhere. Let's call it, actually, let's save it on the desktop. Call it after class. .md. You need to have a .md extension. And then here's the cool thing. If you, this icon right here in VS Code, split editor right, if you click on that, oops, I don't want the welcome, I want this. Now if you click on, sorry, if you want this one, so that now there's two. Don't do this one, split editor right, rather do this one where it says open preview to the side. There, so now I have a preview of what this is gonna look like. So I'm gonna use GitHub Markdown. So according to this, if I say hashtag whatever, well, let me just copy that here. This is, you know, how it looks like in the end on GitHub. When if you were to upload this file, this MD file up to GitHub, it looks like Bootstrap's documentation. Example. Let's look at another one. Here's how to do code samples. So you have the three backticks, and then the name of the language you're using. Could be HTML, could be CSS, could be JavaScript, or it could just be JS for short, same thing. And it looks like this in the end. So if you were to upload this file MD to GitHub, it will look like this. So that's how all of the GitHub repos have this fancy documentation, because all they're using is this special GitHub Markdown stuff. So you're basically creating a web page, but not using HTML, you're using Markdown. That's just to expose you how to use Markdown to create this documentation if you should so need it in the future. You can use stuff like this for images. You can use stuff like this for links. Let's try this for a link. So if I were to put this as a link, there it is. And if I hover over it, then it's, I can click on it. So basically the lab is asking you to create just one multiple choice question that I could possibly use for the midterm. Something that you can come up with yourself. That's what. Okay, any questions or comments before we start our... What was that? I am recording, and you can double check if I'm recording correctly. All right, so let's download this week's stuff, which is this one, lesson file. So let me save that to my desktop. Let's call it 1073, week 6. Let's save that. I wanted, that's what I wanted. Yes, there we go. Where did I go? Here. Unzip that. And let's open up events.html. There it is. Add up in Visual Studio Code as well. Don't save. Folder, desktop. All right. So what we got so far is, does this work already? Yeah. So this page works. You all know how to make this happen. But right now it's happening on a click event. So today's class is on events. What we're going to do is we're going to just play with different events that the browser offers. So here in step 1, it says experiment with a variety of different events. So we're going to comment out the above click listener, and we're going to try different events. For example, we're going to try on focus. We're going to try blur, double clicking, mouse over, mouse out, key press, that kind of thing. And then the end result should be the same. The color, the background color should change. Let's, question.
Can you turn off the UI?
Yes. Yeah. You go ahead and turn off the lights there, John. Oh yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Press something. See, press something. See how it works. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. Okay. Let's comment this out. So let's comment that out. Let's save it. Let's make sure it doesn't work. Click. Doesn't work. Great. Again, when Scott McCrindle created this, he used a lot of dot on-click or dot whatever. I'm going to use the add event listener version. So let's try this. Step one. Let us try. What should we try? Try focus, maybe? Hold on. What do I have here in my notes? Order. Yeah, we'll try key down first. Key down. So what I'm going to do is document dot. Where's my thing? Sorry. Window dot add event listener. So this means if you were to press any key on the keyboard, it immediately calls this function. Well, right now it's giving a reference to that function. If you were to key down, then it'll run that function. So let's see if that works. So let's refresh this. And if you were to type A, S, D, F, right? It's changing colors. One thing I want you to note is try pressing the Shift key. And just try pressing the Control key. It also changes. Keep that in mind. Next. The next event we're going to listen to is the key up. So what do you think is the difference between key down and key up? Let's see. So I've changed it to key up. And you have to kind of play with this yourself. So if I press A again, but hold it down and not release it, A, nothing is happening. As soon as I release A, release, now it changes. So that's what key up means. Again, if I press the Shift key, it works. Control key, it works. Last key thing I want you to try is this. You press. That's another event. Someone tell me what the difference is. Refresh, press some keys, but what's the difference? What was that? What did I type? I typed this, key press. If I keep pressing it for a long time, it'll change the colors like that. Yeah, that'll cause seizures. That's not what I'm looking for. I think, did it do that for the other one or no? No, I guess not, eh? Actually, that's a good question. So let me, just as an experiment, let me go back to key down. Let me try what he's saying. And I'll just hold down A. I'm holding it down A. Okay, it does the same thing. All right, so it's giving you a seizure. So key press, what is the difference between key press? I think Anthony had the answer. No? Okay. Try pressing the Shift key. Try pressing the Control key. Okay, so if ever in the future you have to capture a key press for Shift key or Control key, don't use key press, rather use key down. And that's the moral of the story. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Okay, so the next thing I want to try is the focus one. So instead of key press, it'll be focus. So let's try that. I'm going to refresh. And what focus means is if I were to tab my way to this page. So right now, here's my cursor, I guess. If I were to press tab to get here, now it's not obvious because the blue outline is very faint. So I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna make it obvious. I'm gonna change the CSS here. So in the CSS, I'm just gonna make it real obvious. Does anyone know what the CSS is for that blue outline every time you tab to focus on something? Does anyone know the keyword for that? Thought it was what is outline? Oh, I know. I see what you're saying. Yeah, yes. So focus, yes, to target it. I think is outlined. So we'll make it like real obvious, like wide border. Let's refresh. So here I'm at the top. That's where I'm going to press tab to go into the page. Tab there. See, now you can see the orange border. Tab again. I'm going to shift tab to go backwards. Shift tab. So every time you'll notice I tab or shift tab, that's when it changes color. That's if you were to ever need a focus event, that's what you would do. Focus. What else do I want to say? We're going to try blur. Let's try blur. So try blur. What does that do? Refresh. So I'm going to start here again. Oops. Start here again. Oh, you know what? Okay. So right now I'm here, but if I were to press tab again so that it's now off that button, tab, it now changes color. So it's kind of like the opposite of focus in that whatever you were, getting away from, that's when it changes. Blur. Another thing you can listen to is double click. Try DBL. Click. Save that. Now hold on. This one is into the window. I think I want to change that to the button. I'm going to use this button here. So I'm going to change that to the button for the window. So let's try that. So refresh. So if I double click, if I single click on the button, nothing happens. Single click. But if I double click now, double click, it changes. Double click. That's how you would capture that event if you would need to. We're going to try mouse over and mouse out to see what that does. And for this, I'm going to change something in my H. I'm going to add an H1 here. Oh, so there's already H1 here. So I'm just going to add some attributes here just to. I guess I didn't have to do that. Oh, I did want to mention that too. I forgot to mention this attribute here. Let me go back to the focus one for a second. Before, when I was up here for focus and then I pressed tab, it went immediately to the button. But now because I put the this tab index equals 0 for the H1, it should go to this heading now, as if it was focusable, because now it is focusable. Okay, back to the regulars thing. Okay, so I want to focus on mouse over. So let's say mouse over on the button and see what happens. Refresh. Okay, so now if I were to just hover without even clicking over the button, it should change. Let's see. Out, hover, out, hover. Right? Mouse out is kind of like the blur, but for the mouse. So if I hover over the mouse, or sorry, hover over the button, that's like focusing on the button, I guess. But then as soon as I leave it, now it changes. So the moral of the story is there's all kinds of events that the browser is firing at any given moment, and it's up to you to listen for them. And you could do something when you listen for them. What else did I want to do? What else? Oh yeah, I wanted to mention this. So let's go back to just the regular click event. So if I click the button, so let's just make sure that that's the case. Okay. What I can do is let me say a set interval. So as a reminder, set interval will run your code every so often. So the code I want to run is this. So this is what you can do with clicks. Is you can say button.click. So you're faking a click. So every 2 seconds or 2,000 milliseconds, fake a click on the button. So I'm going to refresh it. As soon as I refresh it, I'm not going to touch the keyboard, but it should every 2 seconds click so as to change the colors. Refresh, hands off. There. Every 2 seconds, it's clicking the button. So that's how to fake a click. You need to. Which, by the way, you can see how JavaScript can be dangerous from a hacking point of view, because basically you can do anything. Let's see what else I want to say. Why did I include that? Oh yeah, let's try this. So forget this for now. Let's try scroll. So every time you scroll down, for example, it should. I don't have a scroll bar here, so I'm gonna force it through CSS. Let's make the web page height huge. So I'll just say body height is 200 view height. Now see this. So now if as soon as I scroll down, it should change colors. What am I missing here? What am I missing? Oh, sorry. I don't want to listen to the button. I want to listen to the fragment scroll and BG change. Again, refresh. Wow, scrolling and seizure time, right? So why is it changing so fast? Because every time you scroll just a little bit, that's a scroll event. That's a so it'll change. And this gets into something called debouncing. So if you're ever in a position where you don't want your function to run every millimeter just because you scroll, if you want it to run like maybe a while after, there's something called debouncing, and you could create that yourself. But I'm going to introduce. This is a good time for me to introduce a new library that is very popular in the JavaScript world. It's called Lodash. Just a history of what Lodash is. Before Lodash was invented, there was this underscore. So underscore was invented to help create some JavaScript methods that early JavaScript did not have. Then developers didn't like underscore because it became so bloated. So they invented Lodash, which is an offshoot of underscore, but they can't call it underscore, so they just called it Lodash because it's using the same. And again, it has a bunch of really cool array methods or different kinds of methods that you could use that maybe you don't want to hand code a shuffle, for example. But here it'll give you that. So if you include their library and say _.shuffle and then pass in the array, it'll shuffle that array for you, so you don't have to hand code that yourself, for example. So debouncing is the one I want to focus on here. So here is how to use their debounce. So I'm going to include their library. So how to include their library? I always like typing CDN whatever. So there it is. Maybe this one. Copy script tag. Let's include it in our. So now that means I can now use. Now that I include it, I can now use their stuff here. So if I just maybe copy this kind of thing there, and in my JavaScript, here's how to use it. So I don't want to run this BG change every time it scrolls. I want to debounce it. So I'm going to paste in what I just copied, and then there, and then maybe every 350 milliseconds, then run the function. So that means when I scroll, it won't change the colors every millimeter kind of thing. It'll just change it every 350 milliseconds. Let's see if that works. Refresh, scroll. I should see. Okay. So it is, okay, what is 350? About 350 milliseconds? Whatever. Anyways, you can see it as I'm scrolling. It's not doing it, every to make a seizure. It's just, so that's just something good to know. Lodash. Okay. Let's try this. So in the past, I mentioned best practices is to use add event listener over .onClick, because in the past I said, any other programmer can easily overwrite your onClick stuff by just saying, button.onClick equals their function, which then overwrites your function, whereas the add event listener is not as easy. So one way to remove your event listener is to use the remove event listener. So let's try. Where's my add event listener. Oops. Whoop. Click BG change. So that's just back to normal, right? Just refresh. Let's click the button to see it. Yes, good. Now here's how to remove it. If you ever need to remove that binding, you would say this: button.remove event listener. Click, but you would need to know the name of that function. So let's see what happens. Actually, this is not going to work, I don't think. Yes, this is not going to work. Do you know why? Let's refresh. Click, doesn't work. Why do you think? Yeah, it's because it's being added and then removed right away. So that's not going to work. So how do you think we can maybe remove it after the click? What do you think? Where can we place this? Inside BT. So let's put that over here. And so after I click it once, it should remove itself. And if I click it again, it shouldn't do anything, right? So click, great. Click again, click, nothing. So that's one case where if you just want something to once or something, at least you know now how to remove an event listener, but you have to know the name. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, there's an option to get the same effect. There is an option here. So let me remove this line. I'm going to remove this line here. Back to here again. So let's just test that out. Click, 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 right. Here, did you know that the add event listener has an optional third parameter where you can say something like this: once is true, meaning to say you only want this click to happen once. Immediately after it's click, remove event listener, so it can't be clicked anymore. So it's doing the same effect as we just did. So refresh, click, click. Okay. Think about a use case of why that would be, where that would be useful. What do you think? Online transactions. You don't want to pay twice. No. Kind of thing. Perfect. Yeah. Let's see what else do I want to say. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can have. Let's try this again. So let's go back to regular scheduled program there. So you got one event click time. Did you know you could actually have more than one? Whatever you want. Alert. So now the same button should do two things: alert high and change the color. Let's see. High. Okay, so I have to say okay with that, but it did two things. Right? I had console log, it would do two. So anyways, that's something that's cool. You could have multiple event listeners on the same event, and you could do something totally different. Cool. What else do I want to say? What is that? Notes. What is that? Nope, that's it. And the final thing is you can have an anonymous function. So right now I have, okay, let me delete this line. So right now I've been just saying BCB background change. But again, just to reinforce in JavaScript that the function definition is interchangeable with the function name. If I just take this BG change function, and if I just take the code in it, so I'm just going to take the function definition. I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to paste it in here. So I'm going to replace this word with the whole function and remove the name of it so it's anonymous. It should. So delete that, paste the whole thing, take away the name so it's anonymous, save that, it should work. That's why you see all the time. You see all the functions inside these parameters. It's just interchange name or the function definition, and that is it for events.html. Any questions before we go to the next one here called events.toHTML? Yeah, Ace. Great question. For the anonymous function, can you remove that? Because in the past I said you need to know the name, and I don't know. Let's try. What if the question is, what if I happen to just say this whole thing? The only way I can think of removing it, right? Right. So the test will be if I click it once, it should change. If I click it again, it shouldn't, or will it? Let's see, once, twice. It's impossible to remove an anonymous. So if it's anonymous, it's impossible to remove it. Which is why probably best practices, people favorite add event listener over .onClick. You're using anonymous. Okay, cool, great question. And that's it for events.html. We're gonna move on to events2.html. Let's open that up in the browser. Events2. Events2. Page. So let's look at the code for this. What does this do so far? So if I click on something, then it should change colors. Is that right? What's happening here? Where's step 1A? Step 1A, modify the below function to allow it to accept the event as a parameter. So if I want to accept the event, then it would be E. Hold on. Then change the background color of the event target instead of the document body. Let me see here. My notes. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so step 1 is we're going to accept an event. So again, common names that you'll see out there is just E, that stands for event. Some people will actually type in the word event. Some people would say EVT. It all means same thing. So we're going to get in the event. As soon as that happens, actually, no, we'll just console log the event just to see what is that E. See what's happening. So this is called whenever this is clicked. What is LM? LM is paragraph, which is over, where the heck? Paragraph formers. I think that's incorrect. I think this should be something else. I'm going to change that to this one. I have in my notes. We'll see. Okay, there we go. So I clicked on the change color. You can see the console log of E. And I mentioned this last class where it's giving you the event. And it's right now it's giving you all the information related to that mouse click in terms of coordinates and all of that. Let's see here. We're going to use that event to our advantage. Changing following. Instead of changing the background here, I'm going to change the background color of whatever I clicked on specifically. So, for example, if I console log e.target, there, right now it's giving me the button. But I wanted it so if I click on anywhere, it would just give me that. So how would I do that? Maybe I don't want LM. Maybe I want something else. Just experimenting right now. Click gives me the HTML. If I click on login. No, click on this. Gives me the input. If I click on this, it gives me the label and the input, probably because they're embedded. If I click on this, it gives me the button. If I click on the heading, it gives me the heading. So here's my goal. Here's the challenge, is I want it to change the color of just that element and not the whole thing. So how would you do that? Let's try this. BG change. So instead of this, so this is what's happening, is it's changing the background color. I don't want that right now. I want to use this e.target to my advantage. So I'm going to say e.target, which should give me the actual DOM element. And then I'll say, I'll access the background color through the dot style. After the dot style, you can put dot whatever CS property equals random color. So I'm just taking this, putting it here. So I think that should work. Oh, except I spelled this wrong. Target. That target, that style, background. Let's see if that works. So if I click on, if I refresh, click on just the heading. Let's see if just the heading changes. Click it again. Click the paragraph. In the button. In the input field. Right. So that's the value of e.target. Is you'll be using that a lot to just target just the element that you want in order to do something with it. And what else did I want to say? Create a script. Okay, let's see what happens if we click on this login. Because right now this login is tied to a form, I believe. Yeah, here. Input value login. So if I click on this, it should go, where should it go? It should go here, submit.html, which is this page right here. So click on login, there. So now it went to submit.html. So here's a very, very, very important thing. If you want to hijack the natural flow of what would occur, what is the e.dot method you should write to prevent that from happening? Does anyone know? Comment out. We're going to listen for the submit. Okay, so when the form is submitted, we're going to do something. We're going to capture that E. And here's the big thing, e.dot prevent default. Now, if I click on the submit button, it should no longer go to this action. It should no longer do that. So let's go back and test that. So refresh, click on login, and it doesn't go anywhere, which means you now have the power to do what you want to do first before it goes somewhere if you wanted to, right? So let's try that. Let's try just making a basic checker. If email field is empty, let's put in an error message saying, you know, fill in the email address and make it not go anywhere. Okay, so one thing you could do is like this. Say if email.value. So why is this use? Where is this coming from? It's coming from here, which is coming from get element by ID email, which is coming from input field. So if this field is empty, I'll just put an empty string there. And don't go anywhere. So I'm going to say e.prevent default. So it doesn't actually submit the form. It doesn't actually go to that action of wherever. And I'm going to say some error message. So I believe there was a document of a selector of this paragraph. So I'm just going to say paragraph text content equals fill in the email address field. So this is very basic. See what happens. Refresh. Keep this blank. Click on login and oops. Click on login, and there it is. Fill in the email address. And that is it for events2.html. Any questions before I move on to something a little bit more advanced? Okay. I'm going to talk about something called event delegation. I'm going to create a new web page, and I'm going to reiterate what I showed earlier in previous weeks about the fetch command where we're fetching JSON. And we're going to recreate the whole Twitter kind of thing again. But this time, we're going to have a little more complexity. So I'm going to create this again, this look, except with the JSON data that we're getting. Let's do that again. Where's the multiple one? That. Ooh, let me just get my notes for a second. So let's start with this. We're going to start with an empty array like we had before. We're going to fetch that thing, except I don't want 5,000. I just want maybe 3. Oops. And we're going to say that then as soon as I fetch that, I get some kind of response, but that response isn't JSON yet, which is why I have to call the JSON method. And once that happens, then I get actual JSON data, which then I can console log. Got it. Up my new page. So there it's blank, but if you go to the console, we should get the object. There it is. Right? We got 3 people along with their object data. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these buttons clickable and change so that if you're not following this person on Twitter, for example, you click it, it'll change to following. And then if you are following this person and you click it again, it'll change back to follow. So the question is, how are you going to do that? There's one of 2 ways. Either you display everything like normal with inner HTML, then do a document query selector all as soon as that's displayed, and then put add event listeners for all of these buttons. Or you can use something called event delegation, which I'm going to show you in a second. So let me finish this first. What do I want to do? I want to, as soon as I get the data, I want to push that data equals data, pretty much. And then once that happens, let's display it on the page. So because I'm having multiple lines, I need the squiggly brackets. So now that people is an array of data, I can map over it, and that map will eventually turn into one big giant HTML string. So I'll say person. Oh shoot, it wasn't data, was it? It was data.results. And then we're going to have backticks, and we're going to take this HTML. Oh, shoot, I need the library first, don't I? Get this link. There it is. Get the HTML. Let's put that in the body. Okay, sure. And I just need this article as a template. So I'm going to cut one row out and then delete the rest. I don't need the rest. Now in here, I can paste in my article. And then just change the values appropriately. So let's just see where we get so far. If I refresh this, where we get so far. Refresh. So am I seeing anything? Oh no, I'm not seeing anything. The reason I'm not seeing anything is because I need to document query selector. I got that main HTML. I got this, and I'm going to inner HTML that whole big string of markup inside here. So that'll happen right here. So main.inner HTML equals this entire string, which have commas unless I do this. Right? And then I just have to change, all I have to do is now is just change names to whatever it was. Person.name.first. Last, let's see if the name changes. Let's try the same thing for the image. How did I know these object names? Because I looked previously. Object. Change the username, person.login.username. Now this is changed. Okay. So now we're back to what I showed you in the past. Now here's where the event delegation comes in. So how are you going to get these buttons to change to following? So right now, all I've done is I've displayed the whole inner HTML here. But now that I've done that, I could do one of two options right here. I could say document.querySelector all, and then, you know what I mean, and then get every single article that I just outputted, and then do some add event listener for the buttons. You could do that. Or you could do something called event delegation. So event delegation is like this. It assumes that this is always changing, so you cannot depend on what's here. So rather than listening to each individual button or row, it will only listen to this, right? The main in this case. Okay, so this could be maybe a UL, and here are different list tags, same difference. So I'm just going to listen here, and if this is clicked upon, it's going to figure out it's going to figure out which children is clicked upon. So instead of document query selector all of this, I'm going to document query selector just this, listen for a click, because if I click anywhere here, in essence, I'm also clicking here, and then work backwards to try to get exactly what I want. So here I'm going to introduce a couple of things. Number one, for the map method, documentation. The map method, after you say .map, you can actually have an index parameter. So you just stick in, example, this could be anything. Could be index, could be whatever. Okay, I'm just going to stick with I. And by saying I, that automatically populates I to the value of the element in this array. So if we're working with element number 1, this will be 0. Working with element number 2, this will be 1, which means I can now use this I somewhere in my huge string. So how can I use that to my advantage? So where's the button here? Here's the button. So what I can do here is I can say data dash, whatever variable name I want, and put in my I. Let's see what happens if I refresh the page, and we're going to look at we're going to inspect the markup to see what just happened. Right now, if you look at the markup for the, let's see here, where is the, this one. So here's the markup for the button. I don't see any data dash yet. Refresh. Now let's inspect. There is now a data dash index 0 for the first one. Let's try the second one. Inspect that. Aha, data dash index 1, which means I now can access that through JavaScript through the dataset dot index in this case. And now if I have that, that means I have the element in the array, which means I can now do something with that element in the array. So let's try this. If let me see here. If it is clicked, where's my click? Or oh yeah. Oh, okay, that's, where does this end? I think it's right there. I think I need to break this up. What time is it? 2. I think I'm going to break this up, but I think it's time for a break because this could get a little hairy. But what I'm going to eventually do is I'm going to break this up into its own function, just called render, before I get into the event delegation stuff. Again, this is a little bit more advanced. This will not be on the midterm, but I think it's useful for you to know. All right. So come back in 20 minutes, and we'll figure out the rest of that later. I can hear the brains being. Getting through it, huge concern. JavaScript, as you're doing all the verification and stuff through JavaScript, got to do that. Insides avoiding the outsides. Okay. Yes, the answer would be yes. The answer would be that's why you have a prompt next semester. So they don't have that clear JavaScript. Not only they have server side, but we also use the database called MongoDB, which is just JSON. We're also using something called Express, which deals with network client side. A way to authenticate security through Express. So that connects to the database Mongo. But yeah, I mean, right now, JavaScript console experience where it's all one so I think at this point I just shall well so yeah, so assuming one I mean, so yeah, for the yeah.
I'm going to license.
Well, even with those, whenever the client side,
Actually, I could hear too much.
you never trust. So even if you were to try to figure out a way that's going to as long as your PHP is checking fields that are coming in, it should be. It should be secure.
I think I found a way, and then it's just the way I'm currently doing it is a giant rabbit hole. And one thing requires two more things, requires three more things after that.
In PHP, I know you can, one avenue you can consider is in PHP. Instead of outputting HTML, you do JSON. Because in PHP, you have a command that yeah, so some kind of JSON where you're just outputting JSON. Yeah. And then that way, your client web page, your HTML page, you can consume that batch. And then you can just display whatever is on yeah, that's one avenue to explore.
That's what I've got going on.
Oh, this is what's happening right now?
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen. You're gonna do your copies, you're gonna build a node. And then once you build your Express out of the Express, no matter how many times you're gonna hash, you just change it to just JSON, so it's not more just JSON. Now, if you ever React,
Also, my PHP course, this was originally for applying a piece of it, and I think they wanted to build this anyway, so I'll be a cool PHP project. But I got stuck. I'm like, okay, I don't have time to finish this before. And it's like, where did you find your skills? Volunteer companies or? Yeah.
Then I go
Okay, so you know, okay, down here. So now, and put it up there and
not all, but ID, video game, publish ID. I have this. First? Yeah, there's three. Here.
Go back to your CSS function.
There's another one. But January doesn't have one. As far as I know.
Yeah, no, I did explain it at the beginning of class, which was recorded on the video. But basically, yeah, okay. Out of curiosity, so I've had some feedback on not wanting to do the ES6 presentation. So now I'm thinking, I'm going to ask for a show of hands to vote. Who wants to do an ES6 presentation, or who wants to do just another regular assignment? So hands up for assignment, hands up for presentation, which is like 5, 10 minutes.
Presenting what? Presenting what?
Presenting like one ES6 topic. Like, for example, you're going to present what an arrow function is. You'd rather present your project? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't like originally when I got the syllabus from Scott, like there was no ES6 stuff in this course. But knowing when I see your COPA schedule, your only other JavaScript class after this one is the Node Comp 2068, and you might need to know ES6 for that, depending on your teacher. So that's why I wanted to squeeze in ES6 while I still gotcha, kind of thing, because it's good to know. So if you're not going to do the presentation, which is what I'm getting, I'll just change it to a regular assignment, which should make you happy because you don't want to present. But I'll make you still do some ES6 exercises on Free Code Camp. Yeah? Yeah.
Are you offended that we don't want to do the presentation?
No, like I wouldn't want to do a presentation. But because I'm the teacher, it doesn't matter. I can make you do whatever I want, right? Here is a tip for assignment number 2. Let's see here. All right. So here's just a quick tip. For those of you who are struggling with assignment number 2, I'm going to give you a really quick, easy way out for assignment number 2. Watch Scott McCrindle's screencast for week 6, because in his version of lesson files, he actually includes a file called gallery.html, which I have deleted. But he basically goes through assignment number 2 with that. Okay, so if you're really struggling, just look at his screencast here, and just look at how he does it. Okay. Yeah. All your assignments are like really easy, I think. No? No?
Actually, it's been too much time in JavaScript.
Too much time? Oh man. Okay. See, you're making me rethink. You're making me rethink assignment number 4.
Oh
Do you want to see a preview of assignment number 4? Here's a preview. Here's what I made up for assignment number 4. And I got this. And I'll tell you a secret. I got this idea when I was a student at Seneca College. So I was a computer programming analyst student at Seneca College. And for the 3rd semester, I was doing Visual Basic, and we were asked to do this. So I created this YouTube video as a sample to show you what to do with. So you refresh it, it scrambles, you click your way, And as soon as you get it, and notice if you click, if you really want to challenge yourself, not only do you have to figure out, which direction you have to animate, or you also have to figure out if you're clicking on a slide that will, there, see all three just moved? So you have to figure out if all three should move rather than just the one that should move. And then if it's in order, then figure out, okay, it's in order, put some kind of message saying you want it's in order, which is about to happen right now. Winner, that's it. How would you like that for an assignment number 4? Because that's what I was originally planning. This is really worth like a 20. You can tell I like basketball, but this is like, this is, I think, not worth 10%. This is like worth 25%. Well, see, no, the third, I want you to use this whole fetch JSON thing to play with this deck of cards API. This is an API where you can actually draw cards and it'll appear on your screen, right? Here's the JSON data, here's the image, and I want you to try to recreate Blackjack 21. But now that I'm getting a sense of the difficulty level, maybe I'll lighten maybe I'll make the bonus mark for like if you can actually get the score happening, but maybe I'll just make a baseline state. Like if you could just get the cards to appear, that's perfect. Maybe just I'll lighten up the difficulty, maybe just so that you're not, because it's really only 10%, but I think you could really go farther than that. What was that? It's only 10%. So basically what I'm doing here, what time is it? Okay, time's up. So basically what I'm doing here is your assignment number 3 then. Deck of cards. Instead of rows of people, it'll be deck of cards, right? You're fetching JSON data, it'll appear on the screen, done. So what I'm showing you here is assignment number 3. Okay. Now if you want to take it further, right, if you click on the card, which is what we're doing here, we're clicking on the button, then maybe it'll do something. I don't know. Anyways, don't focus too much on the next 5 minutes. I still have to get to event delegation, which we have not gotten to yet. So I'm just going to quickly go over what I see here on my other screen just to get to the part that we really need to know. And so what I did was, I thought to myself, this is getting way too hairy. Let's just make this one function called render, right? Where it displays whatever's in the array of people. So that's what I did. So I cut that whole thing out. So as soon as we fetched the data and we filled our empty array with people, I said call a function called render, which will do exactly the same thing. So where is this function render? I just defined it up here somewhere. Render, and then just paste in what I just had. That's it. So that should work still, I think. Refresh. Yeah, still works. Simple. Another thing I did was I decided to change up a little bit my thing. I wanted to make this into a function as well. So instead of displaying 3 people immediately at once, I'm just going to call one person based on a button click. So I'm going to create a button called add one more, which will call this fetch function, which will then fetch one JSON data, which then will be added to the array, and then you'll see it, right? So what I said was, where's my button? So let's just add a button here somewhere. Button, add one more. Okay, let me just see here. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And then down here, where is my one more? And then here, I got that button. Then down here, button, add event listener. Click. And if that's clicked, do the following, which is all of this. Move inside there. I don't want 3 people. I just want 1. And I don't want my empty array to equal array of whatever. I want to push dot results. And because the result is an array, I just want the first element in that array. I think. And as soon as that happens, I call render. Yes, I call render. So let's see what happens. I think that should be what order. That should be good. Refresh. Okay. Now finally, we're at the event delegation part. So here's the whole. I went through all of that just to get to this part. So I listened for the main DOM element here, and I'm going to just add event listener on here for a click event. Okay. So I'm going to say here. Add event listener. Click. And do something with the E. Let's try this. I'm going to console log E.target. Yep. Also going. Add one more. Add one more. I'm going to click on this. Oh, now, because what just happened was, because it was a form, it actually submitted. So what's the? I already gave you the answer earlier today. How do I prevent that? Yeah, prevent default. So here we want to. Oh, wait, hold on. Where's my here? Was it here? I think I'm. Oh, I'm going off my notes. I don't know. My notes is perfect. So I don't know why I'm going off it. Right. Okay. Yeah. So notice here I now have access to the data index, data dash attribute. So that means if I say console data set, and so what was after the dash? It was the word index. So I put dataset.index. Okay, so let's refresh that. Add. Click on this guy. I get 0, right? That refers to this 0, the first element in the array. If I click on this one, I get the third. I get 2, which is the third element in the array. Okay, great. So my goal is to change this from following based on a property. So I'm just going to randomly add a new property to this object called following, and it's going to be true or false. True, it's going to say following. If it's false, it's going to say follow. So let's see here. That means in here, this is where the event delegation comes in. So if E, I'm just going to notice how when I click on here, it gives me before it gave me like div or button or div. I don't want divs. I just want buttons. So I'm going to just filter out the buttons by saying if the target matches, and the matches is a new method for you. Basically, anything that goes in the matches is any kind of CSS selector, just like document query selector. Any kind of CSS in the query selector, the same thing for the matches. So I could say, just give me the button element. So now that that's happened, we can say prevent default on that. And let's say, I'm just going to make it easy. I'm going to capture that 0, 1, or 2 in this variable, e.target dataset.index. Right? So now, here's the magic. I have this object, this array of people, right? And then the first element in that array, let's say it's 0. So now I'm working on a JavaScript object on the first person, which has all these different dot whatever. I'm just going to randomly add a dot following, which is a new key property. And I'll say that will equal to either true or false, depending on its previous state. Does anyone know the nice, elegant way to say in this half of the line the opposite Boolean value of what it was before? Yeah. So what's beautiful about this is that even though the first time through that this does not exist, that means it's undefined. But remember, undefined in JavaScript also means false. So that means this evaluates for the first time, this evaluates to false because there is no following property. But then not false is true. Therefore, this current person's object, we're going to create a new property called following, which will equal true. That's what's happening there. And we're going to render. See what happens to that. What's happening? So add one more, and click on this person here, go to follow, which magically means that this person, if I look at the people array, I look at people 0, because that's what I just focused on. This has a following there. There's my stuff. Following is true. Now, here's the magic, where based on this, I can make this change based on this. Test this and make this change. So where's that follow word? It is right here. String. So now I can use kind of ternary operator to say something like that. If the current person has a property called following, and if that property equals true, or shortcut JavaScript, this will already evaluate the true if there is a true there, right? Then output the string following. Otherwise, output the string follow. And that should work. Add one more, follow, following, follow, following. Change, click it again, goes the opposite way, right? So basically the following property is being toggled true and false every time. So the big idea, delegation is this code right here. So notice we were listening to the main element, which is this stuff here. We weren't listening to the individual stuff that was inside there. And we're asking, OK, based on the data set index property, we know the element in the array, which therefore we can do something with that. And as soon as we do something with that and change and add true or false to this new property we added, then that means the render can test that property and output the corresponding string. Does that make sense? It is more of an advanced topic, but I think you guys can take it. So I just introduced it. This will not be on the midterm. So that is that for event delegation. The final, 2, 3, 1, perfect. The final thing I want to add is, which is not as advanced, but it's something you should also know, is something called event bubbling. I'm going to open up a page here already. This one. Take a look at this page here. File, this folder. File, open folder. Let's go to this one. Event bubbling. Okay. So the markup is really simple. I have 3 divs nested inside one another with different classes. I then say this, query selector also listen, just gather all of these. And then, I'm going to uncomment this for now. So I'm using a for each. I'm not using a map because I can also use a for each to do what I want in this case. So I'm listening for a click event on each of those divs. And when it does, it's going to run this function called log test, which all it is going to console log this. Okay, let's run this. Refresh. I'm going to click on the middle one. What do you think will happen and produce here if I click on this? Keep in mind, we had a click event for all 3 divs. And it's going to console log this, which means it's going to console log the DOM element itself. So if I click right here in the middle, what do you think will appear here? Before I click? Care to guess? An empty div? Let's see. So what's happening here? Because, let's look at the markup again. We have class of 1, class of 2, class of 3. So this middle one is 3, class of 3, which is what it outputs here. But because it's embedded, we really also clicked on this class of 2 div. But because that's embedded in the other one, we really clicked on also the class of 1. So watch what happens now if I change one thing here. If I change, I add this option. So remember how before I had like a want true? You can also have another one called capture true. And watch the order of this now. So right now it's saying 3, 2, 1 when I click on here. If I refresh and click here, then 1, 2, 3. So what's happening is this, and this is a little bit deeper on how the browser fires off events. So normally, by default, this is false, or there's nothing there at all. So whenever you click something on the browser like this, I'll click on here just to be different. Click. What really happens is the browser starts off in the body tag, and it's trying to narrow down exactly what you clicked on. So it starts off in the body tag. It goes down to the 1 tag. It goes into the 2 tag, and it figures out, oh, yes, you clicked on this one. And then because it now figured out exactly what div you clicked on, it fires off an event. Click. And that's why your code runs now, because that event is fired. But it then bubbles up, and this is called event bubbling. It goes back up the other way, where the 1 is now fired. And if there was something beyond that, that would get fired too, right? If we were to listen for the body click, that would get fired. And this capture tells it, okay, don't fire the event on the bubbling up. Rather, fire the event on the way down as you're narrowing down from the body downwards. So if I refresh, because I said capture true, it's going to fire off the event as it's going down. So if I click on the middle, that's why you see 1, 2, 3, because it fires off the event as soon as it hits that as it's going down from body down to here. So that's just something to be aware of. There's something called event bubbling, in case you need to. And these are just edge cases that I'm showing you. It's really not stuff that's regular. But again, I just like to show you the more advanced stuff because you're copper. Have any of you ever seen Scott's actual videos yet for his stuff? No? Like if you watch his stuff, it's all stuff you know. I mean, that's why I try to beef it up for each class for you guys. So okay, and so that is that for event bubbling. Now we're gonna tackle what I promised last week, which is at drumpad. So let's take a look at that drumpad again, where I said, I think it was iPad, Electro, drum. There, it was this one here. So play a little bit of this one. Where's the volume? Volume. All right. So we're going to attempt to do this using the key up, key down, or just the key down event, really. Okay, so we're going to try this. So everyone, and I just created this afternoon. So I don't know if it's, where'd it go? Weekly learning. So this is just like bare bones. There's lots of room for improvement. Where it is? Here it is. So download drumpad.zip. Okay. This zip file contains. Oh, you know why? Because I have hidden from students. Make available. There we go. Try now. So what I did was I took this YouTube link and I Googled the internet of where you can transform YouTube links into MP3s. So I got the MP3 of this whole song, and then I used like an audio splicer to splice up the different sounds that he presses, and I put those sounds in a folder called sounds for you. So I did all that work just so that I have the sounds. Now, I couldn't get these 3 buttons because he never presses them really, so I just put some other sounds in there from another kind of similar app. Okay. So let's tackle this together. Let me see here. Go back. Where's my thing? Let's download this. Download that into week 6, sure. All right. So what you should see, oh, that's terrible. I should say. What's that? Pink rectangles. So now this kind of looks better if it was like, you know, in mobile. Let's just pretend it's that, okay. So you got pink rectangles that is currently not functional. Let's make that functional. So let's open up, where is that? There we go, okay. In my CSS, I experimented with CS Grid. Show of hands who's experimented or know of CSS Grid. It's a relatively new thing that came in the markets for CSS. So I experimented with that. I don't know it fully at all. I have a CSS for the pink, but I also have a CSS for if you press it, it'll flash a different color if you need to. In the HTML here, these are the different pink squares, but notice I have a data dash key code. And then here are all the different sound files, which you can actually include in your markup in the following way. So you just have to say audio tag and put the source here, so that when you document query selector this, you put in some variable like const something equals document query selector this, and then to play the audio file, you just say something.play parentheses. Okay, but also notice I have here these numbers in the data key. So notice these numbers are matching because they correspond to your keyboard's 1, 2, 3 keys, Q, W, E, A, S, D, and Z, X, C. So those 12 keys are your 12 squares. So the question is, how did I find out about these numbers? There's one website you can go to called keycode.info, where if you press any key on the keyboard, like number 1, it actually gives you the actual code. So in your JavaScript, you would have actually something like event. Oh, that's where is it? Event.keycode, I believe, would give you 49. So I figured out the key codes for the numbers 1, 2, 3, Q, W, E, A, S, D, Z, X, C. Okay. All right, so I have here a index.js, which we have yet to create. So let's create that now. Index S. Got lots of time. So that's oops. We got lots of time. So maybe the first question, the obvious question, is how do you get something to play? And I just mentioned that. So I'm just going to demonstrate in the console how to play just the sound. So remember, in the markup, I have all these audio files. Let me just grab through query selector. I'm just going to grab this one through JavaScript. Okay. So I'm going to use this as a identifier because I don't have any IDs or classes. So I can use this. So what I can do is say maybe let a equals document dot query selector, and then here I just want the audio tag, but not just any audio tag. I want the specific one that has an attribute called data key that is equal to what? That is equal to 49. As I say enter, that DOM element is now an A. Let's prove it. Let's test it. If I say A, enter, see, there's the DOM element. Let's test it out by playing it. Here's how to play. A.play, parentheses. That's how to play one. But you would have to figure out how to play the remainder files. So I think I'm going to, how should I approach this? I want you to have fun exploring, trying your best, try trying to make this happen. And I will answer any question that you have as you're trying to struggle through making this happen. So, you know, sir, how do I blah, 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 and I can give you the answer. But I want you to struggle to get this to work, because that's where the learning is, right? What was that? The web page? This web page? Oh, yeah. Maybe someone tell me in pseudocode language, in just English words, what do you think you should do first? Or maybe, okay, here's an idea. I'll give you the pseudocode. I'll give you a few minutes to implement what you think is the proper answer. Yeah? Okay. So first thing in pseudocode language is I want you to listen for a key down event. And if that happens, run a function. So it could take a couple minutes to make that line of code happen. Okay, so one line of code, you may have to define a function in the end. So maybe it's more lines of codes. But basically, you're going to listen for a key down event. And when that happens, you're going to run a function called play sound, for example. And maybe for now, you can create a function called play sound, which will console log something to test. Okay, so make that line of code happen. Take a couple minutes. Nice, I heard something. You want to share? I got it. Nice. I'll give it a couple of minutes because I'm hearing all these sounds now. That was the YouTube video. All right. Anyone want to share what that one line of code is? To listen for a key down event, I will call a function called play sound. Anyone? What do you think? Let me pick on Piyush. What do you think, Piyush? All right, overall. What do you? Let's see. Who else? Connor. What do you think, Connor? What do you think is that one line of code to listen for any key down event, and then I'll call a function called play sound. What do you think? Yeah. And then I'll play sound. Yes, very good. So let's define this play sound. We'll just quickly console log just to make sure it works, and then we'll go from there. Oh, one thing I noticed, one thing I'm noticing now in Java, I'm sure you were taught that make sure you define the function before you call it. Notice in JavaScript, I can call it or I define it, right? You may have noticed that already. Why does that have to happen? And I've given you this answer before with the keyword var. Yeah, the V8 engine hoists. Yeah, just like where var a equals high, what really happens is it puts that var a up at top, and then over here it'll say a equals high. Same thing for functions, right? So when I say function down here, it actually hoists that thing up here. Sound. Actually, hold on. It'll probably say something like function play sound equals, and then down here it'll say play sound equals function. That's what's happening. So that's why I can say play sound before I actually define it down here, because it's actually being hoisted up here, right? Another tidbit that you don't need to know, which you do, which you don't. All right, so let's console log or do something like this. Console log hi, just to test it out. Refresh, and let's click on, what was I going to do? I forgot already. Yeah, key down, right. So if I say 1, that's high. If I say 2, if I say 3, great. Okay, my function is working. What is next? Here's the next pseudocode. I want you to figure out a way to connect. Maybe we'll just do even more baby steps. Let's go back to what I had before, where I said const, a equals document.query selector audio data dash key equals 49, I believe. And so we'll start there, a.play. Let's see if this works. I believe I have this right. Let me just see if this works. So if I press the number 1 key or any key, it should play that sound. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, pressing 1, I'm pressing like L. Okay, good. Okay, so now that you got that, here's the challenge. I want you to figure out a way to make this change depending on the key that you pressed, which is based on this E event. Right? So this E event is going to contain the key code information that you need in order to determine what number goes in here. That's the challenge, right? Because if you can figure out that, you got the right sound. So take 5 minutes to do that. What I would do is explore this E, right? Say console log E, just to see what the objects are. And maybe you'll see something there that you can hold on to. That will be this, right? Because you're basically looking for a e.target.dataset.something. And that something will probably match your kind of thing. Actually, you know what? It's not dataset. Forget dataset. It's not that. I'm just looking at my answer right now. It's not that. It is based on the E. So explore the E. Console log E and explore that. See if a number in there that can now go in here. Right, so here's my console log of E. Explore here. Explore all these objects. Is there something there that can substitute 49? I hear different sounds there. Good job. Five minutes is up? Okay, let's take it up. I'm hearing some good sounds out there. Okay. So, who figured it out? Anyone want to share? Yeah, Anthony, what do you got?
I set the value of inside of the double quotes to a variable and set that variable.
Yeah. Because we're using template literals, what should therefore, where's Sonia? Sonia, because we're using this $sign squiggly line, what should therefore be this kind of quote? What kind of quote should I be using here? Not the single quote. Do you remember what it's called? What was it called? Remember? The back quote, the back tick. That one, right beside the number one. Okay. So that should work theoretically. Let's refresh. I'm gonna press Q. I'm gonna press A. So some of these are longer, but anyways, that's perfect. Good. Now, I want you to experiment with. Actually, let me just experiment right now. If you press a key and then immediately press the key again, what happens? It doesn't play for the second time. Let's change that. How do you make that happen? So before you play, what you can do is this. You can say A, which represents our audio, print time, which is a property on all audios, equals 0. So you're basically rewinding to the very beginning. Okay. So now, if you refresh, good. Pressing multiple times. Another thing I'll add here is don't necessarily. Right now, we're listening for any keys, and we are, selecting it. But there's one way to just limit it to just the audio tag and not anything else. This is just a really quick way to filter out just what you want. So if I'm not getting an audio tag, just quickly return out of this function. So we're not going to run any more code. Okay. Cool. What else do we need? Or is that it? Let me just see here. I make a performance. I'm gonna try to perform a musical performance in front of you. Let's see. Oh crap. Hold on. Oh.
You're checking on a null variable, never set audio.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my notes are different from what I actually typed, so thanks. Let's try. Here we go. Right? I try this. That's kind of like what you. So it's almost all there, but what's missing from the YouTube video? The color change. Figure that out. Let's figure that out. So I've given you a class here called press, which changes the color if that class is added, right? So if I inspect, let's get out of here for a second. If I were to inspect this element, and here's the first one, if I were to add a class of press in here, enter there. Okay. Changes. So also notice that it's animated for 0.2 seconds. So this background color will animate for 2.2 seconds, but you also have to remove that class after that animation is done. So how do you do that? Back to events. Let us figure out a way. Okay, what's the next pseudocode? What do I want to say? What do I want to say? Okay, let's go over here. Down here, here's my pseudocode. Get all the div tags that have a class of sound. Oh. Call it and assign it to a variable called keys. Okay, what's the answer? Anyone? Who wants to take this one? Suk, what do you think? I would say, because I said get all, What would you change if I want all, not just one? Yeah, good. Got all that. In the past, I might have said, change this into an array by putting the ... But because I'm going to use for each, which you don't need an array for that, that's okay. Oh wait. Okay, so here's the pseudocode. Using a for each loop, add an event listener called transition end, and when fired, call a function move transition. There you go. Try this for your next challenge. Now, so this is a new event we're listening to, transition ends. So in the browser, you can actually listen for animations ending. So the browser knows when an animation is ending. As soon as it ends, it fires off a transition event, and whoever cares to listen, you can do something with that. Right? This code takes care of, it assumes that the class is already there. We have yet to actually add the class, which I'm just noticing now, which maybe I should have started off with that. All right, so what do you think? Who wants to tackle this one? Try. Maybe C? No? Okay. Maybe who else? Tyler? What do you think? No idea? Okay, for each, we're going to list, so it's going to go over each element in the node list. It's not quite an array, but it's array-like. We're going to add event listener called transition end. And when that happens, we're going to move the class. That takes care of the latter half. We have yet to actually add the class, so let's do that now. So here in the play sound, we're going to add, here's your next pseudocode. Grab the div element that corresponds to key, assign it to key. So take a minute and write the code, the one line of code for this pseudocode. All right, what do you think it is? Let me pick on Ace. What do you think? Const key equals. Very similar to this. Yeah. Document query selector. But instead of getting the audio tag like this, we're gonna get the div, right? Because let's look at the HTML again. We want this, for example, we want this particular one to light up, to change colors. So how do you get that? We're gonna grab the DOM element that begins with div. We're gonna look at this unique attribute to focus in on that one. So just like how we focused in on this one, we're gonna say data.keycode, which is what I had, I believe. Yeah, keycode. Data.keycode equals keycode. That, so key now should be key that I pressed. Let's just test that's the case. So forget the play sound. I'm not going to play the sound just so it's not annoying. So I'm going to press A, and let's look at the console. A, and press S, press D, right? So notice here, I'm getting the actual DOM elements. That means the variable key is now that DOM element, which means I can do something with that, like add a class of press, for example. Right? So now the next thing is to add a class of press. So your next challenge is add a class of press to keys. Go ahead, take a few minutes for that. And that should work, test it. That should work, that should light up your button. It didn't remove the light up, but it should add it. Who remembers the way to add a class in JavaScript? So .class list .add. Right. So actually, PhD, tell me. We'll just take it up right now. So key .class list what .add. Let's see if that works. That should light up the button. It shouldn't take it away because we don't have that code yet. Let's try it. A S D Q W E 1 2 3 Z X C. Good. Now this is where we have to define a function called remove transition that takes away that class. So your final challenge of the day is this: create a function remove transition that removes the class press. Yeah. I'll start you off by this function remove transition E. There's something in that E that you need to get determined. To remove the class. Take a few minutes for that. All right. Anyone care to guess, or did anyone get it? Get it? Yeah. No. Let's try this. Let's console log e just to see what we're dealing with. Actually, we'll console log e.target. Just be more specific. No, that's not what I want. Added, yes, added that. And then a console. Yeah, no, that is what I wanted. So then I wanted not console log. I want console observer. Something in here. Here's the answer. This one right here. Class list, right? So just like you had to add a class by saying classlist.add to remove, you say classlist.remove, and you remove whatever. So that is the what you would type. So here's the answer: e.target classlist.remove press. And I believe that should be it. There's one thing you could also do, just like how I checked here to make sure I'm not getting stuff I don't want. I'm going to do a similar kind of thing here, where if the property name does not equal background color, then just return immediately. And so let's see if that works. And let's turn on the sound, and let's see. Refresh. Okay. Right. Right. So you could do your thing. Whatever, right? You got your thing. But that's basically it. We had fun with that. If you want to record yourself doing a music performance, send in a video of yourself playing something, you can get bonus marks for that. It doesn't have to be that great. It's okay. So that's it. I did have a question earlier in the break about how exactly to do this after class exercise. So let me just show you a sample, okay? So here is something you can do. Exercise.md, right? And then maybe let's get that preview going so I see a preview. And I'll say heading multiple choice. And then question, given the following HTML code, how would you get all the audio elements? Then I'll look in this case, I'm using HTML, so I'm going to use the triple HTML instead of JavaScript because I'm using HTML, and the consequence of that is the color coding will be make it look nicer, whatever. And then maybe if you examine the markdown thing, notice how I'm saying 1111, but in the end it comes out 1 2 3 4. Would you say document.query select blah blah blah? What you know what I mean? That's it. But it's just giving you exposure on how to write in Markdown, which I think is important in case you were to write documentation for your own, right? Because this is all what people do is Markdown. In fact, I'll go on to say this. There's a new Comp 2068, which is a course that you'll be taking in the future that deals with Node, Express, Mongo, and either Angular, React, or Vue. And that kind of stack is either called the mean stack or the MERN stack or the Mevin stack. There's a new stack that came after that called Jamstack, and it has nothing to do with the guitars. Here it is, Jamstack. Modern web development architecture based on client-side JavaScript, reusable APIs, and pre-built Markdown. This pre-built Markdown is actually, or this pre-built markup is actually Markdown files. So this is a very new way to develop websites where you're just using Markdown files for your content, and then you're writing a command that will translate the Markdown content you write into HTML. And that's what pre-built markup is the HTML. and you just upload that to your to some web host. But it's using JavaScript and APIs as well to make it interactive. So that's learning Markdown is actually really important. Okay, so try to include some of the different things in that list I showed you earlier. For Markdown, you could experiment with adding pictures or links, ordered lists, whatever you want. Okay, so that is all I had for you today. Any other questions before I stop the broadcast? Hope you had fun with that. Did you have fun with that? Yeah, cool. Okay. Given that you're no longer doing presentations for ES6, that now allows me to do some more fun stuff for that class. So instead of you presenting, it'll be us doing more fun stuff with JavaScript APIs that we can. So for example, you've already played with the speech API where the browser talks to you. I'm imagining for that class things where you talk to the browser and it translates what you said. I'm imagining things like the webcam where it could see your face, maybe making an app like a photo booth app. I'm imagining, what else did we do for that class? I'm imagining different things. Yeah, just different fun things that you normally wouldn't get exposure to for this class, now that you don't want to do presentations. Okay. All right, so I'll stop the broadcast. Let me just check any questions in my form. Sure. No questions. Okay, yeah, stopping the broadcast.